बस आ जाओ देखो ठीक है जाओगे देखो
और आ जाओ और कर दो थोड़ा और कर दो
आगे कर दोगे तो यार कहाँ से होगा फिर ये देखना ना
ये नहीं देखना ना पीछे से थोड़ा अच्छा आप हटा दो
Good morning to all of you. Good morning. So, nobody has headache? कल हेडेक नहीं हुआ किसी का? नहीं सर। आज कोई ऑफिस में कोई ज्यादा पैसे का नुकसान तो नहीं हुआ 3 घंटे में? फायदा
यहाँ पे आने का फायदा
What we'll do today, we'll finish definitions of CGST, finish section 7 and schedules and section 9, and finish IGST definitions. It will be another hectic day for all of you. So the definition chapter and charging and supply section should be over today. You know the tennis player Rafael Nadal? I'm his one of the biggest fans. I follow him not because of his tennis. He carries in that tone. It will give you pain. 3 घंटे किसी की बकवास सुननी, उसका आपको कोई लेना देना नहीं है. You have to think when you go back. It will relieve your professional pain. The more pain you take, more you will learn. Like Mr. Bhatia said, like I said yesterday, it is your time. You have to persevere with it. Because schedules will be hectic. If I can devote my time, you are at the receiving end, you have to devote time. You have, in fact, somebody came in the bar in the morning, he typed something yesterday on capital goods. He gave it to me. He said, is this correct? I can tell you that made me very happy that this young man has gone back, examined section 16.2, read the definition of goods, but he missed something. But that's the beginning. So that is the way you have to start analyzing. I'm not going to ask a question today, so you can be spared today because we have to finish hectic agenda. Study के बारे में एक बड़ा romantic सा शेर है. You can relate with this study. After this, on a lighter tone, we'll start. मेरा मयार नहीं मिलता, मेरी मंजिल नहीं मिलती. मेरा मयार नहीं मिलता, मैं आवारा नहीं फिरता. So that is the way you have to study. आज आपने दिन खो दिया, ये दिन दोबारा आपको नहीं मिलेगा. Time doesn't wait for anybody. We are lucky that in this hour we have so many educated people. And we are simply blessed that this bar is blessed with chartered accountants, advocates, senior, juniors, young, old, and this mixture of it gives us this experience what we are doing today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we start today where we left yesterday.
सेक्शन 80 280
So yesterday what we did? We did definition, restrictive, inclusive, ambiguous. And whatever words are defined in the act, we follow common rule. And the technical words there are in the act, they require a technical interpretation, not the common parlance. For example, somebody says, is this a medical tool? No medical tool, no common man can understand. So this you will have to go into technical meanings. Therefore, sometimes courts also adopt dictionary meanings. For example, if I tell you, Supari, most of us think it's a very negative product to eat. nasha karti. But I have one cases in 4 high courts where we prove supari is a medicinal herb because it also has medicinal properties. Pan khana buri baat nahi. Pan helps you to digest your food. So supari, when taken in common parlance, not only people chew it in the pan, but also use this as a herb to cure their diseases. Similarly, multifunction printers. We all have in our office. We work photocopier, we use photocopy, we do print, we do fax. We store data in that. And therefore, whether we can apply a common parlance rule to interpret this kind of product, the answer is no. It's a technical product. But technology has gone into, that's why High Court and Supreme Court remanded the matter to courts to appreciate what is the product before you categorize them as an IT product, as a printer, or unclassified to be taxed at a higher rate. Then we understood the meaning of and or. And makes it mandatory or makes it discretionary. May shall. May shall can be substituted, so can and or be substituted. In a Supreme Court judgment of Int Swift versus Union of India in a service tax matter, the question before court was whether interest and penalty can be levied where input tax credit has been availed but not utilized. That's the question which recently Madras High Court single judge bench answered, to which I don't agree. Supreme Court went into this question in detail. It was before Rule 14 was amended in 2012. There was a word and or. The contention before Supreme Court was, can we read or as and, or and as or? Supreme Court said no. The law is very clear. If you have away wrong credit, chapter is closed. If you come to our act, if you see 7074, the language used is similarly, which is in the Rule 14, which was pre-amended, on which Int Swift judgment was based upon. And language used in our act is more imperative, more stronger than Rule 14 unamended in service tax. The wrongly word was placed there after the word or. Now, wrongly word has been used in GST law in 1774, wrongly availed or utilized. So availed or utilized are following wrongly. Whereas earlier, availed or wrongly utilized was followed. So this debate we will have to get into when we get into this chapter. We have a lot of other material. Madras High Court judgment, I personally totally disagree. That is not the correct interpretation. If that was the only thing you are not availed, not utilized, that will be a very stupid kind of an argument. Supposing you have an input tax credit for 10 crore, you also avail 2 lakh rupees to which you are not entitled. So now let's say मैंने 2 लाख को यूज ही नहीं किया, तो तेरे पास तो 10 करोड़ पहले का पड़ा है ना. So the intention of legislature, Madras High Court did not go into. This matter will go to Supreme Court. They are filing SLP in Supreme Court. So whenever you follow a judgment, if it's a jurisdictional High Court judgment, it is binding upon us, binding on all the authorities in the country, I mean, in the state. Many times we hear revenue, हम Supreme Court इसको ले गए, Supreme Court ने judgment stay कर दी. It makes no difference at all. I have only stayed the operation of that order. On whose order? In whose favor that order was passed. The High Court judgment is still binding. The lower authorities are bound by Delhi High Court judgment till it's quashed by Supreme Court. So this word may, shall, and, or, and the phrases subject to which, within the subject to that chapter, we discuss those phrases, what the purpose of these phrases, and then we came to the negative clause, notwithstanding and no. Both are negative words in English, but in law, both have very different meanings. Notwithstanding is much more potent than the word no. But where, in a section like 16, which we initially debated yesterday, where both these clauses have been used, we have to of the act, the legislative intent of the lawmakers. So how do these two subsections interplay with each other? Are they different? Is their scope different? If 16.2 says the credit shall be allowed if you satisfy the following 5 conditions, and 16.4 say no credit shall be availed beyond a certain period. In my view, both operate on an independent pedestal. 16.2 gives you a right to claim and utilize the ITC. Subject to the condition, you must claim with the limitation. That is the intention of judgment of Supreme Court in Bharti Airtel, where they disallowed a refund of 980 crores only on the ground you did not claim it within the time as per section 39 subsection 4. And then we went into some interpretation rules. What is the preamble? What is the golden rule of interpretation? And other things we followed. Then we come into definitions. We did 42 definitions yesterday, which is a record to do in 1.5 hours, and thank you all of you for being very patient. And today we start with, yesterday we stopped at the definition of notification, 280. Wherever the word notification exists in the Act or rules, 2 subsection 80. Wherever the word notification or notify exists in the Act or in the rules, till this notification is published in the official gazette or is notified in the official gazette, that circular or anything else has no meaning for you. It has no substance. No officer, no authority can force you to accept it. For example, Daily VAT Act, we were cancelling the certificate of association from public people retrospectively. We'll touch this new concept today. Retrospective, prospective. All tax laws are presumed to be prospective, because once you are burdening a citizen with a tax liability, it should not be retrospective. But if a particular law gives a power to the assembly or parliament to levy tax retrospectively, they can do so. They can undo a Supreme Court judgment and levy a tax retrospectively. But the Act must authorize them to do it retrospectively. If the parent act has no power given to the legislature to tax retrospectively, retrospective levy is not possible. It's a settled law by Supreme Court. So in Delhi Act, they cancel the C forms retrospectively of hundreds of dealers. ये चोर हैं, the C form खा गए, tax खा गए, जो खा गए वो खा गए. And the claims of selling dealers were rejected. ये जो आपके C form है, जो आपको राहुल कक्कर साहब ने दिए हैं, इनके सारे ये चोर आदमी है, इनके हमने सारे C form कैंसिल कर दिए. ये तो हार्वर्ड में पढ़ रहे थे तब, जब ये C form यहाँ इश्यू हुए थे, उन्होंने आपको C form कैसे इश्यू किए? But Supreme Court said no. Since you did not put this in the official gazette of Delhi, public is not supposed to have knowledge. That is, once something is public in the official gazette, public at large is supposed to know it. You need not be given a service of that notification. The another thing, that before you cancel, before you disallow the claim, the objection of selling dealers should also have been heard. So in state of Maharashtra versus Race Trading Company, followed by many Delhi High Court judgments, they disallowed this retrospective cancellation and retrospective burden of tax liability on the selling dealer. So retrospective, all tax laws are retrospective. All Supreme Court or Delhi High Court judgments, they interpret the law right from beginning. Unless the Supreme Court writes, this interpretation shall be applicable from a particular date. High Court has no power to specify a date like this. Under Constitution, High Court has no power to say our judgment will be relevant from this date. So even if you are dealing with in 1975 Delhi Sales Tax Act, a judgment comes today, the judgment shall relate back to 1975. They are interpreting a law that was made in 1975. So maybe after 50 years, the judgment still is valid. So remember, only jurisdictional high courts are relevant. So if in your opinion, in your litigation module, if you are trying to follow any other high court judgment on the authorities here, the judgment has no value. It has a persuasive value, but they are not bound by this judgment. Generally, this is the impression. We will touch this when we come to litigation, why it is so, why it is not so. But so far, you have to understand this only. Only Delhi High Court or Supreme Court judgments are binding on the authorities in Delhi, including tribunals. Any other High Court, you may jump, run, whatever, they can say we don't accept it, except because. So whenever you deal with a client and you want to deal an opinion and somebody, a friend rings you up, अरे तुमको मालूम है मद्रास हाई कोर्ट जजमेंट उन्हें उसमें ऐसा बोल दिया, and you advise your client, the judgment has no effect in Delhi. And if you lodge a claim based on that High Court judgment, which tomorrow they don't accept or is reversed by Supreme Court, your client is in trouble. For this, there is a section called Section 60, Open Section 60. I'm sure none of you have ever seen it in your life. कभी नहीं पढ़ा होगा, आपने किसी ने नहीं पढ़ा होगा. Section 60 deals with 60. It deals with a provisional assessment. That is, wherever you have a dispute about a transaction being taxed or not taxed, or rate being different, you file a petition before the proper officer. Tell him I have a confusion here. As per me, this is the tax rate, and this is the advice I want to give. Guide me, what is the proper tax rate? He will have to guide you within 90 days. That is, if you say 8%, he also says 8%, and tomorrow this is 12%. Right? You are safe. If he says, you say 8, he says 12, you deposit 12, penalty is ruled out. So you are not subjecting yourself to proceedings of 122, 73, 74 once you follow a provision, like Section 60, and move a petition before the authorities if we propose to do this. It's a very simple petition. You don't have to write any flowery English here. Before the proper officer, in the matter of so and so, we do this business. This is our business module. As per us, this is the tax rate. This transaction is this way, and this is what is our proposal. Please accept or reject, so that you are very clear what he says. This is much more than an advance ruling. मैं डर गया राहुल, मैं कहा तुम पैरियर लगाया उसके यार. मैंने कहा ऐसा कुछ बोल जोक नहीं है. तुमने ऐसे का पैरियर लगा दिया यार.
My Bhagwati was there, sir. I love her more.
नहीं मैं तो एकदम घबरा गया था. मैं कहा राहुल ठीक है ना तुम आज. मतलब जीएसटी ने इतना दिमाग तो नहीं खराब कर दिया कि अब घर में लगाया ना यार, यहाँ सबके सामने थोड़ी ना सारे लगाना शुरू कर देंगे. उन्हें मैंने तुम बड़ी बहन लगती हो अभी, मैं तुम्हें ठीक करना पड़ेगा. कर दूंगा तो मैं दस में बोल के ठीक.
आज आई भी मेरे साथ में देखो. आज मेरे साथ में आई.
पूनम बस जल्दी में क्यों रहेगी. इसको रोज 3-4 बारी बोलो, हंसने लग जाएगी, इसके गड्ढे गुड्ढे सब उड़ जाएंगे. 50 hours or 50. ये तुम्हारा कभी जीएसटी की किताब नहीं खोलेंगे, ट्रांजैक्शन ले लिए कभी इसको untouchable हो जाएगी. So whenever you find the word notification or notify, you have to go through whether this notification is retrospective. In GST law, they have past notification which are retrospective. So examine it. If you have to pay a liability, it is very huge challenge in notification. Never hesitate to tell your client to fight. I always said, yesterday also said, it's very safe. टैक्स दे दो यार, क्या मिलता है, क्यों झगड़ा करना है, कुछ होना तो है नहीं. Because you do not know anything, therefore you advise him, this is not your payment you want to make, go for the best. If you are convinced that this should be challenged. So notification, be very careful, we'll use this very frequently. Output tax. Read it carefully. I'll give you a different dimension to the definition. Output tax in relation to taxable person. Because only taxable person, registered person can charge tax, nobody else can charge. That is the meaning of in relation to taxable person. Means, again a new definition, the tax chargeable, not charged. Tax past tense. It is future indefinite tense. Chargeable. So there can be a lot of chaos. I see a lot of people, especially the people who do return and compliance business who write balance sheets. They come to me, sir, हमने जो purchase किया 5% था, आज ये कह रहा 12% दो. Input and output have no interrelation whatsoever. Input tax credit is you are entitled to the benefit if you satisfy condition of section 16. Output tax is your liability. The person who issued an invoice, for him it was output tax, that was his liability. So you don't have to base your output tax liability based on what purchases you are doing. But your right to input tax credit only is equivalent to the tax charged by your supplier. As a recipient, when you sell, it is not your baby to charge output tax. What is chargeable? This is where the litigation is coming on the classification products. This is where the HSN rule comes. Harmonized system of nomenclature, we will devote 1 hour of this how to interpret HSN classification. But after this 7 days, then you will be ready to understand what is HSN about. Now when we say chargeable, supposing you manufacture e-rickshaws, you are OEM. Custom में और GM में special concession है. If you supply to OEM, custom duty is 5%. Right? Now supposing you don't sell to OEM, then tax is not 5%. Tax is 18%. So that is chargeable about 18, you charge 5. Finished. Now you supposing you buy wood. आपने wood को ठेक उसका टेबल बना दिया. It's manufacturing. Wood may be 5%, I don't know the rate. 18%. Furniture is 28%. Chargeable is 28%. So wherever you have any chaos like this in your mind, always remember output tax is defined as, in relation to taxable person, tax chargeable. Not charged. Not to be charged. This is your baby. When you file a return, you are doing your own self-assessment. That is why in GST also, once you file the return, till the reopen in 73 or any other provision, you are deemed to have an assessment. Are you clear? So output tax, remember, is chargeable word used. Output supply. Imagine how many of you are following this definition when you file output supply return. If somebody give me return of a multi-activity business, I'll prove all the returns are wrong. I can prove anybody in the country, they cannot file correct returns if you are doing a multi-activity business. Output supply means relation to taxable person means supply of goods or services of both, whether by sale, transfer, barter, exchange, assurance, rental, lease or disposal of any other mode, made or agreed to be made by such person in the course of furtherance of business. ये सारी एक्टिविटी आपके आउटवर्ड सप्लाई में. जब भी आपको ऑडिट होता है, when they pick up your trial balance, they ask you what is this? ये तो सर हमने रेंटल है, दिखाया था सप्लाई में. नहीं सर टैक्स तो दिया, आपने सप्लाई में नहीं दिखाया हमने. You will have 8-10 items like this. With the result, the turnover disclosed by you in your annual return will not match balance sheet. Even while filing Form 9, most of the chartered accountants do not get into this definition of output supply. That is why the mistakes happen. GST compliance is impossible to do. I spoke in front of Nirmala Sitharaman in one CI seminar. Can nobody in the country do GST compliance? It's not possible. So how many of you ever this definition complied with? I'm sure आपने किसी ने नहीं पढ़ा होगा. We know यहाँ वो 37-38 में कुछ आता है और रिटर्न भरती फाइल खत्म कर दी बात. No. You are supposed to go through that particular month trial balance and see what is the income that has come in. Whether this is reward supply as mentioned in output supply, that must go in your 3B or whatever returns are there. person. This is inclusive definition. So wherever the person word is used, taxable or non-taxable or any person, person means only this. That means it is much bigger than income tax. Individual, HUS, company, firm, LLP, association, place of business is very relevant when you start issuing e-way bills. Lot of the indication that come in e-way bills are very stupid indication. These are very minor mistakes done, but that is not as per law. If you are not following law, there are mistakes. The place from where the business is ordinarily carried on and includes a warehouse, that is first आपका रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस है कंपनी का, and include then inclusive residence tax. ये सारी चीजें आपको warehouse वगैरह वगैरह जो भी है, but you have to reconcile this place of business, the definition we did, with section 2.2 and 2.3. Address of delivery, address of record. You have to reconcile these three together so that you continue to follow one address for all activity involving GST department. जहां पे अलग एड्रेस आपके पास नहीं है, intention to evade tax लगा दिया. High court job.
And so there are a lot of litigation which is happening, like when you do a core amendment for adding an additional place of business, firstly it is pending for almost 5-6 months usually, and then without a vague reason they cancel it. Meanwhile, I started my business at the additional place and it has been cancelled. Then if any kind of an audit or anything comes up simultaneously, they say your this additional address was never there.
But Rahul, ये mistake आप लोगों. You guys think once you move an amendment application, your job is over. No.
No, sir, I am not saying
You
that.
have to ensure
Yes.
this is done before you implement that address. It's a government working. Supreme Court judgment already has come on this issue. भारतीय एयरटेल पर लिखा उन्होंने एयरटेल को बोला, इससे फ्लिम्सी ग्राउंड यू हैव टेकन. ये आपकी ड्यूटी हमने पे नहीं मानी, हमने उन्होंने नहीं किया. ये बकवास मैं रोज बार में सुनता हूँ लोगों के बैठ के. आई डोंट आंसर दैम, इज अ डिफरेंट मैटर.
ये तो वेट में होता है, पहले ही मैंने तो अप्लाई कर दिया.
बिल्कुल नहीं.
यहाँ पे नहीं होता.
You have to ensure amendment is done. Tell your client to follow up. Charge him. Because you don't charge him, because you don't get money, you don't follow it. Let client be charged for even a telephone call. कोई फोन नहीं करता. टेलीफोन करेगा, बिल भेजेंगे. फोन करेगा काम के लिए, हेलो वाला करने के लिए ठीक है. काम करे टाइम पैसे बिल मांगेंगे. To ensure whenever you file an amendment of anything in GST law, ensure this is done before you implement in the business of your client. हेलो, हाँ बिल्कुल. Obviously जब आपको बिल एड्रेस रजिस्टर्ड ही नहीं है, ई-वे इश्यू करो, पकड़ा जाएगा ट्रक आपके. उनके कंप्यूटर में तो है नहीं.
क्योंकि मेरा पुराना एड्रेस तो चेंज होकर के नहीं है, आ गया मैं. अब नए पे एड्रेस करके मैं अपना काम कर रहा हूँ. वो मेरे को सिर्फ रेट करने या प्रीमिसेस पे आए.
वो रेट करने से कुछ नहीं होगा, वो तो आपके पास प्रूफ है. मैंने अमेंडमेंट लेकर, बट ई-वे बिल पे क्या करेंगे आप?
तो मैं पुराना ही चलेगा.
फिर ई-वे बिल कहाँ जा रहा है?
यही इशू है. बात करूँगा वो.
दैट इज व्हाई जो भी इनकी ग्रेवेंस सेल है, जो भी होता है, मुझे तो पता नहीं.
Grievance cell से भी कुछ नहीं होता ना, GST में grievance cell.
Then you
उसकी भी grievance है.
that day,
Grievance cell को भी grievance.
that day जैसे आपका DGST का पता ही नहीं है. यहाँ का कमीशन को कोई पावर. उनके चिट्ठी लिख दो. मैंने एड्रेस आपने किया, मैं 1.5 महीने से फॉलो कर नहीं किया, मुझे कोई विचार नहीं.
इसमें तो मेल आती है ना आपको. गूगल की आईडी मेल आईडी.
So that people must not tell you, yes, you have done your job. आप उनके कंप्यूटर पे क्लिक करोगे नहीं. But some action you must show, so you were vigilant to what you were doing. From?
No, that is a static. That is a static address.
Section 2(1) एड्रेस ऑन रिकॉर्ड और 2 बस कोई ऑटोमेटिक ऑटो फिल जाते हैं. आप कुछ कर नहीं सकते.
जो फ्रेज एक्ट्स में यूज होते हैं कि हमें अपने अमेंडमेंट विद इन 30 डेज ऑफ चेंजिंग द एड्रेस एंड विद इन 10 डेज, कोई भी मेंशन होता है
अमेंडमेंट में 15 दिन बाद डाला, लॉ ने परमिट किया है, तो क्या इसका रेलेवेंस है फिर उसके लिए अलग? द लिमिटेशन ऑफ 30 days is a discretion given to you. You may never follow it. Supposing you have 60 days file, 2 months time to file appeal. ठीक है? They have a recovery period of 30 days in the notice. Will they wait for 60 days? So limitation is a discretionary period for you, but maximum allowed is 30 days. You want to start 7 days, apply first day. Don't wait for 30 days. हम लोगों की आदत है, and मौके पे हम रिटर्न की तभी करेंगे, सारी रात बैठेंगे, क्लाइंट नहीं आएगा, उसकी किताबें नहीं आएंगी, क्या हो रहा है, याद नहीं आ रहा, और 9 महीने हम इंतजार कर रहे थे उसका. Then our GST amendment there, you get information. Online जाना, next step करो ना. So these limitations are for you, not for the dealer, not for the department.
क्वेश्चन हो गया सर.
Yes.
हमने एड्रेस को चेंज कर दिया, हमने अप्लाई नहीं कर दिया, जैसा भी आपने बताया कि वो हमारे पे तो वही रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहा है.
आपको वही बोल रहा हूँ कि अगर वो नहीं करते, जो आपका लोकल जुरिडिक्शनल कमिश्नर है, CGST या DGST, उन दोनों को चिट्ठी लिख दो लंबी चौड़ी, हमने ये किया जी, ये नहीं कर. सपोजिंग यू डूइंग ए बिल टू शिफ्ट टू ट्रांजैक्शन, देन इट्स वेरी सीरियस. उसको इनपुट एज क्रेडिट ही मिलेगा. झगड़े ज्यादा है इसमें.
इसमें सर ऐसा भी तो हो सकता है कि बिल टू तो जो पुराना एड्रेस था वो दिखा दिया, शिफ्ट टू में जो नया एड्रेस जो हमारा एग्जिस्ट करता है
उसको ईवे बिल में मैंने कहा परमिसिव, मैंने भरा नहीं कभी. I don't think
That is there. You can override the. You can. There is one bill to ship to, bill from shipping to.
नहीं वो बिल टू शिफ्ट टू ट्रांजैक्शन है ना. ये तो टॉकिंग बिल टू शिफ्ट टू ट्रांजैक्शन.
There is.
बिल टू शिफ्ट टू ट्रांजैक्शन ईवे में. We will discuss this. Bill to for job work. We'll discuss e-way bills. It's a routine matter. I'll examine this proposition. Let's not confuse with the definitions. Place of supply. सबसे बड़ा litigation इस point पर होगा इस country में. Whether you take export of services, intermediaries, interstate sale, exports, imports, or works contract services, they are all linked with place of supply. We will discuss this IGST section 1213 when we touch IGST. But place of supply is relevant. This is where if you sell and the place of supply is the buyer is in Delhi, you will get input as credit or you will not get. Right? So we'll limit this discussion only to this section for the time being. Prescribed. ये जितने आपके कमीशन सर्वर को इशू करते हैं, they have to be examined from this angle. Prescribed means prescribed by rules made under this act on the recommendation of the council. कमिश्नर को कोई पावर नहीं किसी भी तरह का सर्कुलर इशू करने के लिए, किसी भी चीज को प्रेस्क्राइब करने का. आप ये लाओ वो लाओ, कुछ कमिश्नर करते रहते हैं, यूपी में तो बहुत हुआ है, ये लियो वो लियो, कहाँ क्यों लियो भाई. अभी मैं नोट किया था कि वो IRS कमिश्नर का जाने लगा, कहता है विश्व वर्मा क्या हो सकता है, हम क्या करें. मैं तो आपके लिए चैलेंज कर रहे हैं, आपको क्या पावर है बताइए, हम तो नहीं देते आप. तब मैं इसको पढ़ाया, कहते भाई काउंसिल के, हम भी काउंसिल में पढ़ते हैं, टाइम पढ़ते थे 6-7 दिन पहले के बाद. कल रात को मुझे इसका फोन आया, मैंने लीगल ओपिनियन के लिए फाइल भेजी. उसमें मैंने काफी लंबा थोड़ा डिमांड बना के निकाल दी इस चीज के ऊपर, हमारा सर्कुलर था. So whenever the word prescribed is, if you have time, if you think it affects your client, then examine this, whether this is as per rules and whether the rules were made as per recommendation of GST Council. Then it's prescribed word, it means this. Principal means a person. So person is section 284, on whose behalf an agent carries on business of supply or receipt of goods or services or both. It's the same definition like in Contract Act. If you go through Contract Act, the liability of agent and the principal is coextensive. That is, wherever principal is liable, agent can also be liable, or vice versa, wherever agent is liable, principal can also be made liable. But in GST law, it's the agent who has to pay tax. who is to file returns for whatever material supplies. Agent is of any kind. They have their the word agent. I think is defined. 42.5. इन सबके consequences अलग-अलग होते हैं. Agent means a person including a factor, broker, commission agent, aratia, decorator, an auctioneer, or any other mercantile agent by whatever name called, who carries on business supplies of goods on behalf, services or both on behalf of another. Now, look at the difference. जो प्रिंसिपल की डेफिनेशन है एजेंट से टैली नहीं करती. The definition of agent is much more extensive than the principal. Principal is limited means the person on whose behalf an agent carries on the business, or agent says on behalf of another. तो किसी भी काम करता हो इस फॉर्म में उसको हम एजेंट माने. जब भी आप कहते हैं these are pure services, this is pure reimbursement of expenses, it's not income supply. This is where you have to prove you were agent in this sense. Then you have to follow make the agreement and say these were the expenses reimbursed by them, this is not our income, therefore we are not liable to pay these. But if you do not prove this on record, these were pure services, or the reimbursement expenses for services rendered to the principal, then this is deemed to be your income taxable under Section 9. Now just imagine you have to simply read definitions. But all this is linked with the Act. Act में लिखा है. तो अगर किसी प्रिंसिपल ने आपको 10 लाख रुपए दिया आपके एक्सपेंसेस के, ट्रांसपोर्ट के, सैलरी वैलरी जो भी आप यहाँ करते हैं, तो बोलेंगे इसमें टैक्स दो. किस बात का टैक्स है? तो मेरे प्योर रिइंबर्समेंट है. By rendered services, the reimbursement expenses, prove it. If you don't have documents, law doesn't require documents. Law को कोई नहीं रहना contract है या नहीं. It's for you to prove through a documentary evidence that what you are stating is correct. Principal supply. Yesterday we touched section 8 and the definition of composite supply. Two or more taxable supplies naturally bundled, supplied in conjunction of each other, made by a taxable person, one of them which is a principal supply. So whatever the tax rate is of principal supply will be tax rate of the entire composite supply. So what is principal supply? एक definition को याद करने के लिए आपको ये साथ पढ़ना होगा. The principal supply means the supply of goods or services, और both नहीं है. And if you go to composite supply, उसमें both है. That's the way you have to read law. In between, composite supply, goods और services और both है. Principal supply में both नहीं है. They are dealing with goods or services. Right?
Why this is not applicable in the case of when we are doing our medical services?
बस दूसरे चीजों के ऊपर आके रखा हो और कोई वो टैक्स पैक लगा रहा तो बंद करना करना मस्ट टैक्स में 18% या 12% या 5% तो रेट फिक्स है. जैसे हमारे बैट में था 4.D में 12%, कुछ साल 12%.
The main purpose is to get the medical service. If the card is used by the person,
डिस्कसिंग इंडस्ट्रीज जब इसको करेंगे सेक्शन 8 को तब आप ये बताने लिए क्या है. इन पे सर्कुलर आ चुके हैं, इस पे क्लैरिफिकेशन आ चुकी है, इसका कोई रेलेवेंस नहीं.
They are differently built at the same time.
मोटर व्हीकल पे सर्कुलर आ चुकी है. I work for the motor association. We had sent a 20-page representation in the beginning, and they have already clarified. So pre-supply means supply of good service which constitutes the predominant element of composite supply and to which any other supply forming part of the composite supply is ancillary. We continue with the suit example for Madam Gunjan. 2000 suit, 5 lakh shawl. So what is the principal supply here? Cannot be shawl, suit. She wants you to buy a dress. A shawl is never a dress in this country. बाहर है, हमारे यहाँ नहीं. So the principal supply is suit. So whatever rate that ready-made garment has will be also be applicable to shorts. Not the banner shoes of 5 lakh. Shoes will not take a budget. अब मेरे को थका देना बैठ के पहले पर ये खत्म कर रहे. Proper of the definition you must master. It is your key litigation point. किसी भी litigation करने के लिए सबसे पहले आपको देखना है, other than what facts your client faces, right or wrong, you have to win this case technically first. Limitation, jurisdiction. दो चीजें बात केस जीत के आपको कोई और बात झगड़ा करने की जरूरत नहीं. Supposing under section 67, a search is done at your place. The search warrant is not signed by a person, joint commissioner or above. It is signed by superintendent. Search is over. Because the jurisdiction of a rating party comes subject to a condition that the search warrant under section 67 must be signed by a joint commissioner or above. It is not signed, so they do not become proper officers. Similarly, refund circulars. सेंटर के अलग है, लोकल के अलग है, लेकिन सीबीसी के सर्कुलर से उन्हें कौन प्रॉपर ऑफिसर है? फॉर शो काज नोटिस और सर्टेन वैल्यूज कौन? तो आपको जो देखने हैं वो नोटिफिकेशन सर्कुलर जहां उनकी पावर डिसेमिनेट की गई. फॉर एग्जांपल कल हमने पढ़ा एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी. ए कमिश्नर कैन नॉट बी एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी. इफ यू कैन नॉट बी कमिश्नर कैन आल्सो नॉट बी अपीलेट अथॉरिटी. हमारा कमिश्नर अपीलेट नहीं बन सकता. सेंट्रल में अलग से प्रिंसिपल कमिश्नर अपीलेट अथॉरिटीज हैं, हमारे नहीं बन सकते. So whenever you get a case, see whether this is done by a proper officer. तो तभी होगा कि जिस सेक्शन का आपके पास नोटिस है या केस है, उस सेक्शन की पावर किसको डेलीगेट की गई. आपको उसको एग्जामिन करना है कि whether this is so done by a proper officer, then yes, go ahead and file. Then limitation. For example, section 73, 74 limitations are different. Limitation 3 years from annual return. 73, 5 is from annual return. This is one limitation. There are two more limitations. All three run concurrently. ऑर्डर से पहले 3 महीने 6 महीने पहले उसको आपको नोटिस देना है और 3 महीने 6 महीने में ऑर्डर पास करना है. If he gives you a notice less than 3 months, the limitation is over. That once perhaps somebody has never examined. We have examined it. So as a lawyer, as a litigant, professional, you have to go deep into it. What are the limitations there? Does it affect me? Can I win the case on this issue? So there are 3 limitations, 70 to 74. We all know 3 saal, 5 saal. We start filing unnecessary replies. Challenge the jurisdiction. Tell him it's time back, sir. Chapter is closed. Say for example, for 17, 18, under 73 is already time bar. Long back. If he has not issued your notice under 73 so far, he cannot issue your notice now. Now supposing he issues a notice under section 74 for which limitation exists. Don't jump to reply. भागो मत. 74 के 4 issue. Short paid, unpaid, fraudulently claimed, collusion, deceptive. उनमें देखो क्या आपने रिटर्नों में ऐसा कुछ किया था. अगर आपके सारे क्लेम रिटर्नों में थे, return for filing time, they are the authority 74 cannot be invoked. Again challenge. Your notice under 74 is not maintainable for the following reasons. Your merits are later. First challenge on jurisdiction. Sir, do you have jurisdiction to issue under section 74? In service tax, Supreme Court, in series of judgments they quashed. Under excise also, under 73(1) also. In Delhi case, Delhi VAT Act, I did a case in Delhi High Court where they invoked a limitation of 6 years, long back, instead of 4 years. In 34. Sir, where the material was 6 years. ऐसा सब रिटर्न है मेरी गई है. DWAT 51 फाइल करते सीफॉर्म खराब है. मुझे पता है क्या है. That is, the jurisdiction under 73, 74 or any other such provision, any other act or rules depends on preconditions mentioned in those particular provisions. We need to examine the provisions and say, can the officer bring us here? वो आप बोलेंगे कि पेमेंट हमारे बैंक से आई है, हमारे सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स है, ऑल बकवास. Your books have no relevance with your transactions. Books, invoices, the only function is to get reimbursement of price. It has no connection with your transaction. हमारे पास सी फॉर्म आ गई थी, हमारे पास ये आ गया, तो सेंटर शेयर की थी क्या, वो तो दिखा, जी आ रहा है सर, मेरी पेमेंट बैंक से आई है. नो, the documentary evidence is only for your reimbursement of prices. They don't prove transactions. So as lawyers and litigation lawyers, you have to prove hard, spend time on proving a transaction, then collate it with the evidence you have. That is, litigation is a storytelling. Like I tell you stories in my lectures. This is a storytelling. सब ये हुआ, ये हमने किया, ये एक्शन कहता है, ये मर्ज पेपर है. अब हम लोग क्या करते हैं, हम नोटिस देते हैं, क्या बकवास कर रहे हैं, मेरी सारी पेमेंट बाय बैंक से है, आपस में डिस्कशन. In all these things, no court bothers. पेमेंट नहीं आएगी तो कब आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा क्या? 160 days बाहर को लेने, आपको नहीं लेने. जिसने इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट क्लेम करना है, उसको 160 days में पेमेंट देनी. आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, आपको तो आउटपुट चेक देना ही देना. क्या उसकी आएगी तो आपको क्या, आपको टैक्स नहीं देना क्या? So this invoices, your books of accounts, what you are writing. What you are writing. रेवेन्यू लॉस होगा ना, उनके सीआर में चला जाएगा. लॉस कुछ नहीं होता, पर बोलेंगे 10 करोड़ का नुकसान होगा. So therefore whenever बोलेंगे 10 करोड़ का नुकसान होगा. So therefore whenever you what you have to say, नहीं सर हमने तो जो गेहूं बेचा है और कुछ नहीं बेचा, no that's not enough. You have to say in the section 7 so on. इसके बाद वो क्या पूछेगा आपसे, कुछ नहीं पूछेगा. Market is still sold at this